So it's time for value for payments, and Stay Secure report by Visa shows that 76% of cash-only SMEs intend to acquire POS systems in the near future. 79% of those surveyed in Nigeria mostly or completely trust digital payments. 3.8% of consumers are planning to use digital payments more over the next 12 months. 72% of consumers find digital payments are quicker and simpler, while 78% appreciate the anytime, anywhere convenience that these digital platforms do provide. But are we there yet? Talking about contactless payment and tap to pay. That's what we are discussing this morning. I know a lot of us have heard about it. We've heard about contactless payments when we go outside the country, especially countries like the United States. It's a norm. But here in Nigeria, it's been introduced. However, how much of it has been adopted? How much has been adopted? And then there's the tap to pay also. So we look at the numbers and we look at, or we see the intention of especially the Central Bank of Nigeria, financial inclusion on the one hand, and then the digital part of it is on the other hand. And of course we know the cost is all somewhere in the middle of this. Last week when we had this similar conversation, the issue of the cost of these digital transactions seem to also pop out as a discouraging factor, apart from the issue of infrastructure, which still needs a lot of funding and development. But let's find out what the lead consultant at LB Integrated Resources Limited, former Chief Operating Officer of FinTech Association, joining us for this conversation, Dr. Babatunde Obrima. Dr. Obrima, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So when we go abroad, contactless payments it's just the norm. But here in Nigeria, it does seem we still have some hurdles to cross before it will become a commonplace.
Well, I would say yes and no. Ideally, it should be a commonplace, but there's just the first one is security. People are afraid. If your card stolen, it means that someone can take money from your account, just like that, by just tapping. But let's face it, the maximum they can take on any transaction is just 15,000 naira. Now, the issue is that how many people can afford to lose 15,000 naira? The maximum they can take in a day is 50,000 naira based on the limit set by the central bank. But people still have those fears. So I think that's really one of the biggest challenge that we have, the issue of fear. The infrastructural issues also, like you had mentioned earlier on, it means that a lot of merchants will have to upgrade their POSs to POSs that are with NFC, that are NFC enabled. So that could also be a limitation towards its adoption. I think also you don't have consumer demand. I think that people are very comfortable with what they're using right now, that the demand for it, if the consumer demand for it increase, people will have no choice but to, merchants will have no choice to get those NFC enabled POSs. So I think those are the challenges that that exist in terms of not adopting it presently. But let's face it, it's very convenient. It makes transactions faster. It's you can either use on a card or your smartphone. You can exit a transaction, a shop immediately. So I think that we need to. I also think that there isn't enough awareness, and I think that's a big challenge where when products are introduced. QR was introduced by NIBS some years ago. Contactless payments was actually in 2023 by CBN, June 2023. That's when the regulations and the frameworks came out. And then you had the same problem you have with e-Naira. So I think we need to create a situation where there's enough awareness, consumer awareness, before these things go into the market. I think that's one area both the CBN and banks need to spend a lot of money in terms of creating the awareness.
Yeah, so creating the awareness, but you also noted the fear of security. What do they do in other countries? Even students in like the Asian countries, they just, it's the phone and then they're out. What kind of security features do they have that we seem to be missing out?
So I don't think that nothing is missing. So what happens is that the devices are NFC enabled, and the message between your card and the POS are encrypted through a tokenization process. So it's well secured. The fear here is just the fear of your card being stolen. I think that's just the big. And when you look at if cases of theft, people's cards being stolen, or forced to ATMs to withdraw money and things like that, then those are just the fears. There's nothing missing in it.
What about tap to pay? Is that the same? Because tap to pay, I think there's still a bit of contact, yes?
Yeah, tap to pay is still a bit, so it's still tap to pay is contactless really, because I mean it's tap and then you go. So it's a means of contactless payment. I think that for people might want contactless, but I think the most secure are biometric based solutions. Either you're using your finger or your eyes. So I think that maybe we need to push that more. Maybe would that make people more comfortable than the tap and pay or contactless. But the truth is that it's convenient, it's secure. It's just the fear.
But what about the costs? I mean,
Sorry?
of course, when you talk about the cost, it's not just for the contactless payment, it's the digital generally, in the country. Some people have pointed to that as a discouraging factor.
Yes, so this is my personal opinion. It's a cashless environment, then the cost should be on cash, not on digital payments. As long as cash is free, people would keep using cash. So if you want a cashless environment, then the penalty should be on cash. That's what they did in Sweden. So we need to look at the same here. I mean, a big penalty for using cash transactions will be if you take cash to the bank, you pay a big penalty for it. If you're withdrawing, you pay a big penalty, then people will move to digital platforms. I mean, there's been an improvement. When you look at 5 years ago, we're only doing 200 billion naira in digital payment transactions. Today, it's 1 quadrillion. So I think that there's been an improvement, but then we need to put penalty on cash. That way we can reduce the cost on digital payment, because banks pay a lot of money for processing cash, so moving cash, so to put cash in an ATM. Some banks even have rooms where they iron these dirty notes so that they can go into the ATM machines. So it's a whole huge cost, and it's not, if it's free, then it's not profitable for me to do cash. So let's put the premium on cash rather than on cards.
Yeah, we even saw, I mean, I don't know if you saw the CBN's results for 2024. There was an increase in cash management, the cost of cash management for the CBN. So one would think, I mean, what's going on? Obviously, it should come from the CBN because they are the regulator, to try to move the cost from digital platforms. If you want to use a POS and all of that, it should be easier or cheaper than if you want to withdraw your cash from the POS. But it doesn't seem that's the situation. So I guess it's the CBN we should be looking at on this.
Interesting enough, I think it's not CBN. I think that there's actually a connect between monetary policy initiatives and the ideology of the fiscal policy operators. So CBN wants to achieve a credit environment. Politicians love cash. So the guys who are in charge of the fiscal policy use cash for a lot of stuff. So until the nexus between both fiscal and monetary policies to achieve a cashless environment, I think that CBN is a little bit handicapped. That's the way I see it.
Really? But one would have thought. But anyway, as you said earlier, if there's a demand, talking about the contactless, then the merchants will have no choice. How do you think we can drive that demand from the consumer's side?
Yeah, I'd say it comes back to consumer awareness. When consumers see the benefits and the convenience, everybody's looking to buy convenience. So once they realize that this is convenient, they will demand for it, and that's why we need to really promote it and create that awareness for it.
What about the issue of infrastructure? We see that also causing distrust, and deterring consumers' demand.
Well, that's a lot of factors affect that. I mean, for an exchange, the cost of POSs, most merchants don't want to pay that cost. They want banks to give it to them free, and or require money over time. So how do we bring down those costs? It comes to the fact that, for I need to grow, production needs to occur, some things need to happen locally. How do we start to assemble POSs locally, build it locally here, and bring down the costs? So until we're able to achieve a lower cost for these infrastructures, it will still continue to be a challenge. Why should the woman selling granules not have a POS? But the cost will scare. So how do we bring down that cost? Or do we subsidize that? Will government be willing to subsidize that so that POSs can be given free of charge or something? I think we need to look at those options if we really want to achieve a fully cashless environment.
Yeah, and the digital infrastructure, of the transactions, so we don't have hitches and in-between transactions.
So that has to do with infrastructures at the switching level and with the banks. And I think that there's a lot being done. There are a lot of more switching companies, the OPAs, the InterSwitch, NIPS, and I know that NIPS is also upgrading their facilities. So I think that will not really be a challenge. And because it's encrypted, some transaction can actually happen offline. So that's the beauty of the contactless payment, and there's a limit to how much you can do on with the contactless payment. So I don't think that's really going to be a challenge.
Yeah, well, when you talk about the contactless payments and then you talk of the rural areas in the country, it looks like they are still a bit further away. Can we just get them to the basics first before we go to the contactless? Because we're still talking about financial inclusion here.
So I think for the rural areas, what we need are biometric-based POS. I know there's a fintech Quaxt Mobile that's already brought one into the country. I know you just need people registered and their biometrics are just used to make withdrawals. That's what we need for the rural areas right now. And it works from 2G to 4G, so you can actually do some transactions offline too. So I think those are the kind of innovations that we need to bring into the rural areas before we start going contactless there.
So how would you say our journey of financial inclusion generally now is doing in the country, the drive, the pace, of adoption and acceptance?
I think we are making progress. Can we do better? I think so. So I have a different concept. So there's no village you go to in Nigeria that you don't find somebody who needs financials in those locations. They collect money, they lend out money. The people in those communities trust them. Now, so practically a lot of people have some form of financial involvement, but they might not be included in the official financial system. Those guys, I think, are the ones we need to develop a policy for on how to bring them in and create sub-ledgers under them for the people that trust them. This guy will not come to the bank. That's the man or woman they trust, and we need to see how we can bring them to the financial system. I think that's an area that the regulators also need to look at. How do we do that? So that you can involve more people in the formal financial system through those babalajos, they call them, that the local people trust.
Yeah, well, I dream of the day when, you go to the open market and you don't need to look for cash before going there. I look forward to those days, not just for the babalajas, but, all those women right there. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Babatunde Obrima, lead consultant, LV Integrated Resources, and former Chief Operating Officer of Fintech Association of Nigeria. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.